I'm going to have a look at the Rhythmic Recall test section from the Rock School syllabus. You'll need to have your book, or if it's an online, if you've got the online version, it'll be helpful for you to have that available to you as well as the video, so that this will make more sense to you. It'll be very difficult if you're not looking at that at the same time. Before I get into the exercise, I'm going to try and explain just a couple of basic things about how the music's presented, because I think that'll make the exercise a little bit simpler for you. This isn't going to be a full explanation or lesson on how to decipher music and everything about the tablature and the staff and all the rest of it, but in terms of tackling this exercise, there's a few general points that I think will make it click a little bit better, and hopefully give you a better chance of being able to understand what's being asked of you better. So, bearing in mind, if you're looking at the music in your book, you'll see that there's two actual parts to this at the bottom of the page. When I say a part, I mean you've got some bold black lines at the start on the left hand of your page. The top one starts with a little squiggle, and then just underneath that there's some more lines that say tab. So that bit is one part that is involved in the exercise, and underneath that we've got a completely different part that starts in exactly the same way. It's got a little squiggle, and then the other lines underneath say tab on them. Again, I'm not going to get into depth on music theory and notation at this moment, but there's a few things that we can pick up from that if you understand the general things, it'll make the exercise simpler. So what are we looking at? We've got two lines, so let's just look at the first piece of music, the top section. We've got two parts to it. We've got the bit with the squiggle, that's called the musical staff. The squiggle is something that's known as a clef, a treble clef, and that gives us a reference point as to, in music, where we're going to play the notes. Don't worry too much about that, but that's what it is. Following that, we've got a couple of number fours, one above the other. That's telling us the count. So basically, we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what the top number's telling us, and the little 4 underneath that is telling us the value of each note. So the count's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're playing a note on each of the 1, 2, 3, 4 under normal circumstances. After that, we've got what you would consider to be normal music notation. If you've never played before, you open a music book and you see these little dots and lines, and some are connected together, some aren't connected together, there's little symbols and stuff. That's traditional music notation. Just to be completely open, I can't sight read music to speed myself. It's not a skill I have. I can get a piece of music that's written in that way, I can decipher it. If I was asked to do it, what I'd probably do is make myself a little tab of it to make it simpler for me. But it's not something that's ever really been a feature of my playing, because myself, my background is sort of rock and metal playing. A lot of it's quite quick, and I just cannot sight read at that speed. I can understand what it is what is being notated, but my skills of sight reading aren't at that level to be able to just get a piece of pure music without the tab and read the dots and lines. So for that reason, a lot of guitar music nowadays, most guitar music, everything in your rock school stuff, includes the tab, which is below as well. So if you look below the squiggle and the 4/4, it clearly says tab, and then you've got 6 lines which represent the 6 strings of the guitar, and they feature numbers that tell you which notes to play. So on this example, the first note, all the notes are 0 actually on this test. So 0 on the string, on the 6th string, that's just telling me to play an open string. If it was to have a number 3 on the string, that's telling me to play at the 3rd fret. So tab is a really simple way to be able to learn pieces of music without having to understand the musical notation, the dots, the squiggles, which dot represents which notes, etc, etc. With the tab, it's telling you exactly what note to play, for every note, so there's no confusion there. So tab's really great, it's fantastic, it's made music on guitars so much more accessible to so many more people, because you don't have to put the time and effort into learning the musical notation. But the problem with tab is, and this is one of the things that's involved in this exercise, the tab doesn't tell you when to play the notes. The tab will only ever tell you which note to play. So if I didn't have the treble clef, the musical notation, as well as the tab, I have no idea when I'm supposed to play those notes. I know which notes to play because it's telling me, I can see, oh, 0, 0. I can see which notes it wants me to play, but without having the musical staff as well, the timing aspect of it, the tab doesn't contain that information. That's not always the end of the world. If you go and buy a music book, or if you look on how to play a song online and it's got the tab, if you know the song and you know what the song should sound like, you can rely on the tab. So you don't necessarily need that timing information. But for an exercise where you don't have the music, you don't know the song, then you need some kind of reference as to when those notes need to be played. So that's the key that we're looking at in this exercise. It's not which notes to play, because every single note in the exercise here is just going to be an open E string. Maybe different timing. But it's the timing bit that's really important here, and that's where the staff, the music part, is useful to us, and that's what we need to be understanding here. So, tab aside, let's have a look at the top line. We've got the squiggle, we've got the 4/4, which is sometimes called a time signature, sometimes called a meter. That's giving us some basic information as to how many beats are in each bar and what value each note is. Once we get into the music, we can start to see what you normally consider to be music, the little dots with the lines and other symbols and things that look like they're designed to confuse you if you've never seen it before. So I'm going to have a look through, just to start with, these little dots and lines and symbols, so that before we even attempt the exercise, we've got an idea of what it means. And if we've got that idea in the back of our head, it'll make the exercise hopefully a little bit simpler. So the first note, it's showing just a single little dot with a line attached. In simple terms, again, I'll do another more in-depth video, but in simple terms, that is one note or one count. So as we've said, we're going to be playing 4 counts to each bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The little note, single note with a squiggle and the line just going up. If we had 4 of those in a row, in a bar of music, we'll play 1, 2, 3, 4. So the way that note is written, just with a single line, is giving us the information as to when it should be played and how long it should last for. Moving on from that note, again I'm looking at just the top example. I've got 2 of those, but now they're connected with a horizontal bar going across the top. So we've got kind of an upside down U shape with the little dots as well. When you've got the notes connected like that with a horizontal line, that means that the rhythm of the notes is twice as fast as what they would normally be. So in a normal count, where I was going 1, 2, 3, 4, if I've got 2 notes that are connected by the horizontal line, that will be the equivalent of the count of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So those notes will be performed twice as fast as the normal notes. So if I do the, I've done another video on some rhythm techniques, but if we count through a bar of 4, I'll play the first 2 notes as normal notes, so each one has got the same value as the count, so 1, 2, and then 3 and 4. That will be the equivalent of playing the first note, 2 examples of, and then the other notes connected together. So 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. So the notes being connected together means that they're played at twice the speed of the normal note that isn't connected. So on your piece of music, moving on to the next symbol, we've got like a little squiggle that goes down through the lines. That's known as a rest, and that means on that beat we don't play anything at all. So we have a little period of silence on that beat. So if I was to, again, the 1, 2, 3, 4 example, I'll play notes on 1, 2, on 3 I'll rest, and then I'll play a note on 4. So I'll be playing 1, 2, rest, 4. You'll see that throughout these examples and all over music, because we don't always want to be playing something. Sometimes the rests, the stops, they will be really important to the rhythm that we're playing. And finally, to finish the first bar of this, we've got another standard note. So just looking at the first bar, when I'm talking about a bar, I'm talking about the way the music's separated. That's where you see the vertical line that goes right through all of the horizontal music lines, and that's our bar complete. So the first bar on these exercises, I've got a normal note. That's my 1 count. Then I've got 2 of the connected together notes. So on my 2nd count of 2, that's going to be 2 and. That's followed by the rest. So for the 3 count, I'm going to play nothing because it's a rest, no notes. And then for the 4 count of the bar, I'm going to play a single note again, because it's just the straightforward single line with a little dot on. So the very first bar of this exercise, if I was to play it as it's written there, I'm going to have 1, 2 and rest, 4. 1, 2 and rest, 4. The rest is falling on what would normally be the 3. So at this point, before I look at the exercises, just have a look at your music and try and see if you can decipher what's happening in terms of the count. So where you're going to play a single note, where it's going to be a 1 and or a 3 and or whichever, those are connected together, and when you see the little squiggle, where you're not going to play any note whatsoever. So what I'll probably do is just have a pause at this point and just have a look through the music that's been shown to you before we have a go at the 2 exercises. So for the test itself, the examiner will play you a 2-bar rhythm, so you'll have 2 bars of music that'll be repeated twice over, and then what you'll be asked to do is to repeat that, whatever he's played or she's played, on your own guitar. So it might be useful at this point if you've got your own guitar handy, so that you can have a go at the exercise as I'm doing it. Once you've repeated what the examiner has played, so you're just going to copy what they've played, they'll show you 2 different pieces of music, like you can see in your Rock School book, and they'll ask you to identify which one of the 2 that they just played and you just tried to copy. Sounds a bit complicated, but don't forget, you're not going to play any different notes here. It's all on 1 note. It's going to be the open E string. So you don't have to worry about trying to copy different notes. It's all about the rhythm and the timing. So what I suggest is get your guitar ready. I'll play 1 of the 2 pieces that's in the Rock School book, and then you can have a go at copying what I've just played, and then see if you can identify which of the 2 pieces it is that I've just played. The pieces that you're given for the exam might not necessarily be, and they probably won't be, the same ones that are in your book, because obviously you could just learn those and be familiar with those, and it's not really much of an exam. So it might be different. It won't be anything more complicated. It might just be that the notes are in different places and the rests are in different places. So it's just a case of listening to where the notes are played, whether it's single notes or the double one-hand notes and where the rests are. But just be aware, it might not be the exact same piece as what you're looking at in front of you in your book. The exercise is played to, it says in the book it's played to a drum beat backing track. I'll use a metronome to keep tempo with it. Again, it's 85 BPM, same as the melodic recall test. So it's the same tempo. It's a reasonable tempo to do this at. So I'll play one of the pieces, and we'll see if you can have a go at playing it back, and then see if you can decide which one of the two pieces that I've played. So that's one of the two pieces out of the exam book. Have a go at playing it back, and can you identify which one it is? Hopefully you can. It was actually, I'll tell you the answer now, it's the first of the two pieces that I played. If you didn't guess it right, maybe have another listen back to what I played and see if it makes sense to you, knowing which one it is. It might make more sense just to learn it that way. Again, it's fine if you don't quite get it right at this point. That's what practice is for. That's why I'm doing this. We'll try and get it sorted out and get these problems ironed out before you have to do it for the examiner, just so that you can understand the difference between the two parts. I'll just have a playthrough of the second piece of music in the book so that you can see how it differs. You obviously know which one I'm playing now because I've just told you, so maybe have a look at whilst I'm playing it, have a look at the music in the book. Not so much the tab, because we're not bothered about the pitch. Have a look at the notes, the sticks and dots, and see if it makes sense to you as I'm playing it. So I'm going to play the bottom final example now from the book. So again, can't stress enough, don't worry about the notes, the pitch, it's all on one note, the open E string. It's all about the rhythm on this. So it's getting your sense of timing into more accurate and being able to understand when to play the notes, not which notes to play.